Okay, we're continuing with Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes by me, Pete Rogers, alphabetical order. Rutherford D. Rogers, he was like this head librarian in the United States at a couple major libraries, Yale, Stanford, etc. And he said, "We are drowning in information but starving for knowledge." You could say we're starving for wisdom, so it's still a good quote. Yeah. A smart person doesn't just have a lot of facts. They're wise in the use of them or know things that matter. Okay, next, Will Rogers. He lived from 1879 to 1935. He was an American actor and comedian. He said, "Work to make a living, but serve to make a life." And I think that's kind of how it goes. You got to do something to make money, and a lot of times it's going to be tedious. You don't like it. But then you got to do good stuff to make yourself happy and make other people happy. Everything is changing. People take their comedians seriously and their politicians as a joke. I don't know how I got over the hill without getting to the top. 10 men in our country can buy the whole world, and 10 million can't buy enough to eat. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. A man only learns by two things. One is by reading, and the other is by association with smarter people. Yeah, so you got to try to get around smart people in whatever way you can. And a lot of times, like let's say you're interested in learning about cancer. Well, you're not going to know 10 people that know cancer. What you got to do is read books by people who know cancer. People's minds are changed through observation, not by argument. The problem in America isn't so much what people don't know. The problem is what people think they know that just ain't so. Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's sort of like, like I said, I go to the grocery store and I see like more than 90% of the toothpaste containing fluoride. I say to myself, gosh, that's been known for like 40 years at least. And if the American public doesn't know that, what do they know? And you get kind of almost sad, but you say, you know what? No matter what, I'll continue to try to educate the public and save Western civilization. What else am I going to do? Okay, let's see here. Diplomacy is the art of saying nice doggy until you can find a rock. If you want to be successful, it's just this simple. Know what you're doing, love what you're doing, and believe in what you're doing. Yeah, if you can get all that together, that's great. It's hard to find something you love that you actually get paid for. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Yeah, so I think you should, whenever you leave your house, you should dress nice. You never know who you're going to meet. And when you're young and good looking, it doesn't matter so much. But the older you get, the more important I think it is. You get treated better. I mean, one of the reasons to dress nice is you get treated better. It's also a sign of respect for other people. Okay, next we're going to talk about Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn lived from 1930 to 2009. He's a good guy. He's one of these motivational speaker guys. And they're kind of like salesmen, but, his heart's in the right place. I like him. My favorite guy of those guys would probably be Brian Tracy, but you know what? Jim Rohn is good. I do like him. I think Tony Robbins trained with him. Anyways, here we go with Jim Rohn quotes. He says, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You become who you spend the most time with. The difference between where you are today and where you will be in 5 years from now will be found in the quality of the books you've read." And I'd say, yeah, that's pretty much how it is. It's mostly the books you read. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to know powerful people, movers and shakers, good for you. But, most of the pros, myself included, I'm just a smart pro. We don't know any big mover and shakers, So it's like the books you read are what develop your mind. And if you want good books to read, I wrote that book, the top 50 books in health and nutrition, to give people, because I've read many hundreds and hundreds of books, thousands, to give people the fastest path to getting well educated. Because, people constantly ask me the same questions over and over again. And it's like, look, just read Kempner and Pritikin and McDougall, and then you'll be solid. There's always going to be more things to learn about, but you'll be solid and you won't fall for all the silliness that you'll hear all the time about, the nonsense Mediterranean diet and things like that. Okay, Jim Rohn continues. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. For things to get better, you have got to get better. And I remember seeing that when I was a little senior in high school, going on my recruiting field trip for a scholarship to wrestle at Stanford University. And then one of the junior wrestlers, he's an All-American guy, he had a big sign on the wall of his dorm that said, "Don't ask for an easier life. You're not going to get it. Ask to become a stronger person." Okay, he's actually Jeff Wilson, All-American. He's a great wrestler. He's a great guy, too. He's one of my guys that I admired when I was a young guy. You need to have role models, too. People older than you, that are real hard-working and, doing good. It inspires you. Like Aristotle had said, the bards, the storytellers, the poets are more important than the historians because they tell you how things ought to be, how things might be. And like Ayn Rand had said, that is your lifeline. That is your connection to your hopeful future, is to have that, because otherwise in daily life you often get bogged down in tedium and with a lot of negative people. So you want to have something that you're aspiring to. It's almost like Oscar Wilde had one quote one time. He says, "Even though I'm in the gutter, I'm at least looking up at the stars." And I think that's a good way to be, because a lot of times in life you're going to be stuck in the gutter with BS. But if you're saying, "I'm going for that big thing that big goal up in the sky," and you're aiming towards it, you're more resilient and you can keep on developing despite bad circumstances for a while, for a prolonged amount of time. Okay, we'll continue with Jim Rohn. He says, "You must either modify your dreams or magnify your skills. Poor people have big TVs. Rich people have big libraries. It isn't what the book costs. It's what it will cost you if you don't read it." Okay, continuing with Jim Rohn. "Those who will not read are no better off than those who cannot read. Formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Whatever good things we build in life, they end up building us. The difference between being ordinary and extraordinary is doing the right thing while nobody is watching. Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you can't get more time. Love is a better master than duty." I think one of his other quotes I can recall was something like, "There's only two things that get us to change: inspiration and desperation." So when you're desperate, find something to inspire you. Okay. I had a real sad time my freshman year of college at Stanford, and I was thinking about dropping out of school. I got injured. The coach was considering taking away my scholarship. My girlfriend broke up with me. I was all sad and bummed out, and it's like my mother's like, and I said, "Mom, I'm thinking of dropping out of school." She goes, "No, I want you to stay. Just give it all you got for 1 year." And I'm like, "You know what, Mom? I like that. I'm going to be like a learning machine for 1 year." And I wasn't doing that well in school at first either. So, but what I'm trying to say is, there was nothing else to do except study all day long. And, during that phase, I learned study skills. And I said, I am going to become as good as I can be in school. And if I flunk, it'll be because I just couldn't do it, not because I didn't try. And I learned study skills and got good. What I'm trying to say is, I was desperate. And being desperate sometimes, if you use that to motivate you to work nonstop all day long, you can improve. Okay, continuing with Jim Rohn. "The goal of effective communication should be for the listeners to say, 'Me too,' versus 'so what?' The key to life is to become skillful enough to do rewarding things. Pay the price to become the person you want to become. You need courage to be creative. You need the courage to see things differently, the courage to go against the crowd, the courage to take a different approach, the courage to stand alone." Yeah, it's not easy to do, and you have to want it, because it doesn't happen by accident. I know tons of doctors. Most of them never read like anything. I talk to them all the time on the phone, and you'd be surprised. There's some smart doctors, and a lot of times people will have family duties, women busy taking care of their kids, so they don't read. But most of the guys don't read too much either. I'm kind of amazed by it, how little most people read. Okay. Next, Jim Rohn continues, "You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. That is something you can take charge of. You don't have to change the constellations, but you do have to change whether or not you read, develop new skills, or take new classes. Disgust and resolve are the two great emotions that lead to change." Yeah, sometimes you can be so disgusted that you're motivated. And when I got injured from wrestling, the guys I hung around with were really good. All-Americans, national champions, world champions, Olympic champions. And so I had gone from being a really good athlete to just being, good student athlete here at Stanford, but nothing like the top-notch guys. And so I was so pissed off that I was low man on the totem pole. It's like, if I can't make my wrestling career what I want it to be, I'm going to make my academic career something special. And like my father was a doctor, kind of a big shot doctor, and I'm like, I'm better than my father. I wanted to excel. I was super motivated, off the charts motivated. I think that was a good thing. There was nothing else to do. But part of it was because I didn't want to be on the. I hated being low man on the totem pole as a wrestler, and I wanted to not be that someday in academics or medicine or something. Okay, Jim Rohn. Failure is not a single cataclysmic event. You don't fail overnight. Instead, failure is a few errors in judgment repeated every day. The few who do are the envy of the many who only watch. To solve any problem, there are 3 questions to ask yourself. First, what could I do? Second, what could I read? And third, whom could I ask? Okay, for things to change, you have to change. So anyways, that's Jim Rohn for today. Hope you found that helpful.